Welcome to Digital Life, the webinar, Technology for Living and Working. In this edition, we focus on cybersecurity for SMBs. The expert panel includes Emmanuel Oscar, System Engineering Manager, Caribbean, Fortinet; Gia Abraham, CEO, CAC 2000 Limited; Mitra Siaga, Managing Director, Jamaica Fiberglass Products Limited; Trevor Forrest, CEO, 876 Technology Solutions; Ronald Donaldson, Major Account Manager, Fortinet; and introducing today's moderator, the CEO of T-Tech Limited, Christopher Record. Today's webinar is powered by Fortinet. Thank you for joining Digital Life, the webinar. Catch the playback at JamaicaObserver.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from all over the world, from wherever you're joining us. Welcome to another in the series of webinars put on by the Jamaica Observer, The Digital Life. Today's topic, we're talking about cybersecurity, and it's a topic that we really need to be talking more about over the coming year and years, because as we go digital, our assets and all the technologies and our communication, it's all digital. And trust me, there are some bad actors out there that are trying to either get your crown jewels, or they're just trying to, steal whatever they can to make a buck or two or a million from this. So we have a very diverse panel here today. And as the introduction went through, I'm going to ask each panel member to not only just kind of give additional little bit of intro on who they are and what they do, but also their thought about digital and IT security, cybersecurity at this time. So, ladies first, let's start with Gia Abraham. She's muted. Gia, check your audio. I think you may be muted. Guys, unmute yourself so we can all get going.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. And it is a pleasure meeting all of the panelists this morning before we started. So welcome, first of all, everyone. I am Gia Abraham. I just assumed the position of CEO of CAC 2000 Limited in January. So I'm pretty much 6 months into the role. A little bit about myself. I am a banker turned entrepreneur turned CEO. So I've kind of been in all of the areas. Definitely not in the IT area. It is not my strong point, but it is something that I recognize as a business we do need to definitely have to be able to operate, especially since we operate on a global scale. One of the things I have found is that what we are doing right now is we spend a lot of time navigating what I call the IT quagmire that exists. And with everything, it is dynamic. And just as with everything else, it's extremely dynamic and it's changing by the minute. Globalization has actually increased the risk of what I would call cyber attacks on us, especially since most of the companies that we deal with are worldwide. Most of our suppliers are not in this side of the world, are not in Jamaica. They're actually across the globe. And so that is one area that we have seen expanding so far. And the cyber attacks have definitely increased. And we feel more like we're fighting that on a daily basis, as opposed to doing the work that is what we would consider efficiencies for our internal success. So that is me in a nutshell. Chris, back over to you.
Mitri, you're here representing, I guess I'll call it the world of manufacturing on your shoulders. You're no longer the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, but I know you're as a manufacturer at heart. Please give us a quick intro and, tell us what you think about this whole situation around cybersecurity.
Thanks, Chris. Well, when Chris and Trevor first came to me and asked me to be a panelist here, I thought, well, why me? I know very little about cybersecurity. And subsequent or after that, one of the roles that I play in service to my country is that I am the deputy chairman of Petrojam. And it hit home to me in a very real way when I saw what happened with the cyber attack on the U.S. pipeline, the effect it had directly on the company that on Petrojam, and by extension the people of Jamaica. So it hit home to me how important cybersecurity is for all of us, no matter the size of our business, no matter what it is we're doing and how sensitive the information is. I think that we need to realize that our information is really important to us, and we don't know that until we lose it or until we don't have full use of it. So that made me become a believer, and I'm happy to be here today to really learn from the experts here and to answer any questions and to put a more realistic business-minded point of view to the discussion. So thanks very much for having me.
Mitra, thank you very, very much. Trevor, as a local practitioner on the ground, give us your little intro, and also tell about a high level about some of your concerns in the industry on the ground right now.
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. Hello to all the other panelists. A76 Solutions has been providing information and data security solutions and consulting since 2006. When you compare the evolution of the threat landscape since 2006 to now, I mean, the changes are exponential. And we've seen where, because businesses, people, entities are becoming more digital. I mean, from something as small as your cell phone to the management systems for your business. Because people are getting more and more digital, the threats and the attackers are seeing the value in and the ease at which they can actually access that value, right? So one of the biggest challenges that we've faced is actually convincing businesses, especially the small ones, that security is something that you're going to have to pay more attention to as you start to use technology more. And it's been a challenge because perhaps as practitioners we don't do a good job of explaining why it is that you really need to make that investment, which is why something like this is so important, because that's what we want to do here. But it's very challenging to equate the investment value of something you typically can't see or touch or feel. So I think in over the years we've seen where attempts have been made to increase awareness. But I think now with, especially some of the things that Mitri just spoke about, and the increasing in the number of threats that have been publicized and made public, I think now businesses are starting to realize that, this thing about going digitally transforming and so on, requires, and the security that is required for that needs to get their attention a lot more. So I think, what we're doing here serves a good launching point to educate small businesses, make them more aware of the seriousness of security, especially moving into that digital realm. So I think what we're doing here ought to be very useful for a lot of the small businesses.
Thanks, thanks, Trevor. Our presenting sponsor today is Fortinet Inc. Fortinet is a global player in IT security, and our representatives on the ground and in the region, we have with us Mr. Emmanuel Oscar and also Mr. Ronald Donaldson. And so, Emmanuel, kind of tell us what you do for a living, and kind of give us a sense of why this is important. Why do we kind of really need to be trying to convince small business about this whole idea of cybersecurity? They don't seem to care about it. Why should we?
Hey, thank you, Christopher, and pleasure to be here. So my name is Emmanuel Oscar, and I represent Fortinet. I'm the systems engineering manager for the Caribbean, which covers both Spanish and English Caribbean. I've been with Fortinet 12 years now, and I did see that you had the video with the 20-year anniversary, and so happened that 12 of those 20 years I spent with the company, and prior to that was also as a consultant architecting Fortinet-based solutions out there. And back to your question, is that it's very important because as we saw and you did see that Mitri mentioned that it really hit home for him, right? And that's very important for every one of us. What's been happening, and we saw in the past year, is that the ramp up of ransomware and attack, taking advantage of different situations, that happened, in 2020. So really, when you see the attacks against our critical infrastructure, it's not only that it's going to impact a system or computer, which we can replace, but it's actually our everyday lives, right? How we get fuel, how we manage, how we communicate, and also how we transport. And that's infringing on our everyday lives as it occurs. And so everyone, whether you're in IT, a CEO, or a board, everyone needs to understand the importance of having a proper cyber hygiene and being able to protect not just computer system, but people, processes against cyber attacks.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Ronald, last but not least, your thoughts.
Thank you, guys. Listen, I really want to say a big thank you to you and Chris for coordinating this. I think some of the pushback I've seen here in Jamaica is that it's usually an enterprise issue or something else that's overseas. And I think as everybody has previously stated, with the heightened attention on the attacks, it's now becoming a realization that we need to have these conversations. And in have these conversations, the awareness over there is why cybersecurity matters to us as a daily conscious exercise. I'm the major account manager for Fortinet. So my role is to advise customers on how to deliver secure networking solutions in their environment. I think in terms of the landscape, to answer your question, so data is obviously the new goal. I think we can agree on that. But I think we got a little bit comfortable because it was primarily seen through legitimate sources in terms of us having advertisement tailored for us. But the point is that bad actors want that information as well. They're going to be using it either for scamming or to, taking your data hostage. And within that, what you're going to find is that the compromise is going to cost more than just the simple idea, oh, I just lost some data. Cybersecurity is really the business of slowing all of that down. But cyber, in contrast, is about, things happening as more faster than we can imagine. It's the convergence of man and machine. At Fortinet, however, what Fortinet seeks to do is to have speed and integration by way of our security fabric. And what the security fabric does is it's a defense by team. So we look at all the vulnerable points in an organization. It's a holistic view. And we take into account what those breach points are, and we have a solution around that. The difference is when you have a single solution delivery is that the other breach points are vulnerable, and in being vulnerable, that means you're open to attack. So we don't have a single delivery system. The idea is you have a defense as a team. That team approach allows you to look at all the possible points. And by that, we can help you plan and assess and ensure your security. So that's kind of the approach that we speak of with our customers on a day-to-day basis.
Ronald, thank you very, very much for that. So in a paper that came out by a security organization called the SANS Institute, I'll read a little paragraph from it. Security is difficult to sell to management in many environments, but in a low-risk environment, it can be a formidable task. A low-risk environment can be one in which any of the following is true. A, the organization's product is in the public domain, freeware, government policies, standards. B, there is no perceived critical service provided to the public, i.e. e-commerce or low visibility e-commerce, such as small company providing online ordering to its customers. Or C, management believes that no one would have a reason to break into the organization's network, i.e. the organization is low visibility, small, or unknown, right? And it ends by saying low risk does not mean no risk, right? So Trevor, Emmanuel, and Ronald, both Gia and Mitri, their industry that they're in mainly seem to fall in this category of low risk or, in that area. So I'm going to just ask each of you to spend a minute or two to tell Gia and tell Steve and tell Gia and tell Mitri why they should be concerned about this thing. I mean, they did explain that they are, having reasons and they're more conscious of it now. But just to speak to a wider audience out there who believes that they're in this low risk area, why they should be concerned on a more practical level. You guys gave some high level a while ago, but let's kind of, talk to the common man in their language, if that's possible. Trevor, start out with you.
Yeah, so I think those 3 points, the third one especially, are spot on, especially in the reality that we see here in Jamaica, because I've gone to many clients, and I'm sure, even, Ron and yourself, could attest to the fact that, you go to certain types of clients and they'll say, Chuck, I'm small, this is Jamaica, nobody knows business about my company, or, the info that we have, there's no value there, and nobody not going to try happens. What's the value that there are, or the information that we have that they would want? And what I tend to do in trying to relate that situation to them is say, look, first of all, imagine life in your business today without any technology. And if your business can't function without the technology you have now, then you need to protect it, right? So that's the first thing, because that is a valuable part of your business. So if you took out all the computers, took out all the technology out of the business couldn't function, that's the value of the technology. How much is that worth protecting? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, as it relates to, the fact that, I'm small, nobody knows business about me. What I tend to do is I say, well, who are your clients? Who do you do business with? Because a lot of times, small businesses in Jamaica, or anywhere else, but, in the context of Jamaica, small businesses have some very big clients. And as such, they are entrusted with information often for those big clients. And hackers are notoriously lazy people. And they're always looking for the easiest way to gain access. So if they look at a bank or insurance company that has, the budgets and the resources to spend a lot of money on security, they're not going to go through that front door, because chances are that's well secure. But what they're going to do is they're going to look at, the smaller entity, what is viewed by management as the low risk, because the low risk ones, quote unquote, are the ones that are either not able to invest in the technology to protect against these kinds of nefarious actors. And what they'll do is they'll use those small companies as the gateways to the big ones. So when that happens, again, that represents a threat, because now your clients look at you as a liability. And if you're a liability, the chances of you losing that business start to increase. So again, all of these realities are what, we have to seriously consider, what small businesses have to really consider when they're looking at making the investment to secure their business, because that investment has now to be compared with what they would lose if one, they suffered a breach, or two, if their company ceased to function because of a cyber threat or a breach of their network and so on. So that's kind of how I try to make the case to businesses. Like, it doesn't matter how big you are. Very small businesses can have gigabytes, terabytes, zettabytes of data. That is where the value is. And if you have that data, that is what hackers and nefarious actors are looking for. So your size doesn't matter. And that is what you have to use to determine, the level of investment in securing those assets.
So, Ron, following along that scenario I created a while ago with respect to that low risk environment, businesses, those businesses may not consider, apart from it being important, but also they just don't have the resources. What would you suggest that an organization like that do? What should they buy? What should they look into to try to solve this problem?
I think where resources are concerned, either by way of acquisition or by actually having the skill set in-house. I mean, if we're being honest, we'd have to look at Fortinet partners like T-Tech and 876 Solutions to actually, I would suggest they make contact with them. These, I refer to the whole thing about Fortinet acting, providing security as a defense team, as a defense. The benefit of having a managed service provider like T-Tech or 876 is that they will have the resources in-house, either by way of the skill sets, engineers that can assist you with being able to plan and execute a strategy that will enable you to be secure. Additionally, if, and as you had mentioned, if there is a concern about the initial acquisition cost, that's where a managed service comes in again, because the managed service can use economies of scale by having multiple clientele so that the small business isn't impacted by a one-time owner or spend as well. So my suggestion would be reach out to your local IT Fortinet partner, have a conversation with them and come up with a plan and allow them to focus on that side of the business while you focus on the core business.
Emmanuel, want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so absolutely. And I'll definitely reiterate what Trevor mentioned about you're never too small. Whether you're a low risk or high risk, the attackers or threat actors are going to take the same advantage. And as he mentioned, this SMBs are a segue to the enterprises. And as Ron mentioned, also that about the different services. So what we do at Fortinet is that we not only do we offer enterprise class security, but also to the SMBs we offer the same enterprise class level of security through different through a service provider, so on at a very affordable cost. And reason that is because we understand that attackers are going to go after everyone, whether you're small or big, as long as the opportunity exists. And the other thing that I mentioned also from our guests is that one is going global and the other one is involved into what we would call oil and gas. And again, you see the different types of attacks that are happening on the critical infrastructure. And also, if you're going to go global, you have to consider the different regulations overseas. And also, you may be a low risk, but there is something, and I'm going to bring to light. I know we talk about ransomware, malware, and these other type of attacks, but also remember there's folks out there that are just looking for computing resources, right? So they may hijack your system as well, right? And to be able to use that system's resource, whether to launch an attack and attack or leverage it to mine Bitcoins or something of that sort. So really, whether you're high or low risk, you still have to take your measures to protect your system. And we do it in such a way to provide SMBs an affordable enterprise class type of security services without breaking the bank.
Emmanuel, interesting you mentioned that whole someone hacking into your system just to use it to mine Bitcoin. A few years ago, I have a home computer. You know, I came in late in the night and I saw a light flashing away. I'm like, I'm not using the system. Why is that light flashing? And I looked at some certain processes were running. Of course, I logged out the machine, I turned it off. And then next day I started doing some research as to some of the processes I saw running. I said, aha, this is what's happening. Of course, I wiped the machine, I reloaded everything because yeah, it's real, and it's not that someone is even stealing anything from your data, but they're just using your own.
Using your system.
Yeah, exactly. They're using your system. So gents, thanks very much for that. So Mitri, I'm going to ask you again. I've mentioned before the manufacturing organizations consider themselves low risk. But you, in a recent newspaper article, seen here in the Jamaica Observer, you are contemplating doing an IPO to raise funds. In this scenario, as you plan to add on this extra structure of governance on the organization, is there any new thinking based upon what you heard, based upon the experience you've had, that aha moment around IT security, going forward for your organization? Muted.
Apologies. When you guys first came to me, cybersecurity was just something on the news. It seems as though since you have spoken to me, more and more things are happening. Last night I was watching the news and I saw that Minister Daryl Vaz seemed to have been, his information seemed to be used, his WhatsApp was hacked and somebody was posing to be him. And I thought to myself, boy, my company is small, but he's an individual. And they were able to hack him and use his information to get millions of dollars out of people. So the short answer to your question is yes, I certainly have been rethinking it. And we'll have to now look at the necessary things that can be put in place prior to us going public.
You already went public. You did your IPO January 2016, same as I. You're now a $1 billion organization, I think 1.2 billion based upon your last annual report. What has changed over the last 5 years since being on the stock market and your consideration of just thoughts around this area? Yes, I know you're 6 months in the job, but has it been on the agenda at all?
Okay, so Chris, you know how I am already, right? So I'm going to take over for a little bit if you don't mind. So I'll tell you that, let me go from the get-go. It has always been on our agenda. It has never left our agenda but in the first thing, I think what we need to look at as an SMB, SMBs most of us think of IT as our computers, our laptops, and that some little elf is doing something in the background to make everything work, right? It's not our core business. We don't see it as, hey, pay attention to this that much. So we hire somebody, we get them to do something, and we say, okay, it's supposed to work. That's all we know. Plug in, turn on, press a button, it's supposed to work. What I have seen is that we are more at risk. We have had cyber attacks on us, as you well know. We have had some losses. We have had tons of different things take place. And even though we have actually tried to put the different things in place over time. And so one of the things that we have recognized is that possibly security measures, the hackers are ahead of the security measures. So, as a small company or as a listed company, it's taking a lot of time and energy from us to try and understand what is out there, what is the change. Every week, somebody says to us, there's this new cyber attack, there's this new this, and really, it's not our core business. And so, right now, what is on the table is that we are looking at it that, I think Ron said it earlier, to bring in an IT person in our new financial year, because it really has gotten to the point where we don't have the expertise in-house. And one of the things I would recommend to all of the in IT, you need to talk to us as IT dummies. you have to dumb it down, because, and I'm in an industry where we go into a customer and we say, yes, you need to do this for your IEQ and your IAQ, and then the customers have that deer in a headlight look, and they're like, what in God's name are you talking about? And we're telling them about SARES and all these things to do with air conditioning and the quality of the air, and they're totally confused by what we're saying. And that is what's happening to us as a small business owner. Because when you guys come in, you speak tech. We don't speak tech. So I have found, even just for me right now, to make sure that I understand what you're trying to tell me, I need to hire an in-house person who you guys speak the same language, and then they come and speak to me in English. And they say, this is what is happening. This is what you need to do. The other thing that I would say that I see is that, coming from banking, in banking, you go into your office, you turn on your computer, and you only have access to what the bank has decided you have access to. As a small business, we need to now get into that. So where we could just buy a laptop, load it with a few, load it with Excel and whatever, and leave, they could surf the web, they could download YouTube, all these things. What I'm seeing is that as a small business, I need to put in place a formalized IT policy, formalized laptops, formalized systems, where you as my employee cannot decide you want to surf xbox.com. You can only do what I have given you the parameters to do. So those are some of the things that I have seen that I now need to put in place because of the increased risks that we are facing. And I know Chris may think that, hey, Gia is a hard nut to crack sometimes, because you come to me and you say, you need to do this, go and do that. And I'm thinking, I don't have a person who can do that. And nobody in here has that expertise. So when I am being told what I need to do, it really sounds to me like Greek. It honestly does. And I don't know if any of you have taken up a sport where you look at a excellent sport person in the sport and you think, rotted, I could do that, man. And then all of a sudden you go and try it and you realize, okay, I can't even hit the tennis ball over the net. It's taking me like 6 weeks just to figure out how to serve, right? And you look at somebody and you're saying, boy, they're serving and they have it down pat. How come I can't get it? And that's the best analogy I can give you for IT, for a small business. We look at you guys know what you're talking about. You could sell, as they would say, ice to an Eskimo. The unfortunate thing is, once you sell the ice to the Eskimo, they may not know what to do with it. That is what happens to us as small businesses. You sell it to us and we look at it in total confusion, right? So I'm hoping I've answered your question, Christopher, but that is what I do see for us as a company.
Yes, Jay, you have answered the question, and you've also painted an excellent picture and given us, as a matter of fact, I'm happy that this is being recorded, that I need to play it back for my team, because this is good education for anyone who has to go out and communicate with business folks around IT, and more importantly, this very complex area of IT security. So against that backdrop, Emmanuel, Ron, Trevor, who wants to jump in and just kind of try to calm Gia's nerves around some of the concerns we have? Anyone put up your hand and just go? Emmanuel, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, thank you, and heard that loud and clear as well. And it's a concern. There's always a gap between management and the IT personnel. But as I mentioned earlier, and we have, as an industry, we have to work hard to make sure that we provide the awareness, and not just at the IT level, but also at the C-suite and also at the board. And each will require their own level of education. And as Gia mentioned, it has to be done in such a way that the communication is such that she understands it in a layman's term, as opposed to the jargon that is normally used. On the other side of that is I would say, and I kind of highlighted to that is that leveraging. We understand it's tough. Security is very hard, right? And sometimes we're lost. But I have to say, there is always help, and SMBs like yourself can always leverage the partnership that you have with 8876 and TTEC and Fortinet as well, right? To leverage with Fortinet over 20 years of experience, right? To help you address your security needs. And also, as I mentioned earlier, is that to be able to, you may not have the expertise in-house, but we do, and we can help you address your cybersecurity needs.
Thank you. So, folks, we've been talking very, very high level and general on IT security in general. Not that we don't want to get into the nitty-gritty detail, but Trevor, I don't know if you could just kind of highlight some of the actual IT security related situations that happen. So whether it's specifically ransomware, business email compromise, or just select 2, 3, or 4 to kind of explain to our audience, because as I said, whilst Gia and Mitri are here representing, we do have a wider audience. I just checked on 1 and 2 social media channels, and we have a very large audience out there, and I'm sure they want to hear a little bit more detail on, okay, I'm hearing about IT security, but what should I worry about?
Right. So yeah, I was listening to Gia, and she's hitting a whole bunch of nails, right? And listen, I have to agree. Sometimes as practitioners, we don't do a very good job of making it make sense. And what I've found is, in an effort to kind of make it, or to, as Gia says, dumb it down, I try to use stories and parallels. Now, some of the most, challenging situations that companies or even individuals face is nowadays ransomware and things called phishing. And you're like, what? The guys out there with phishing codes attacking my system? Well, no, but one of the things that, and see, it's these terms that when you start to use them, you're like, hold on, what does this mean? This just doesn't sound like it makes sense. But some of the challenges, like I said, ransomware, where, for whatever reason, users, they're either using email, they're using applications, they're surfing the web, they're downloading applications onto their machine without really understanding where they came from. Sometimes you get an email with an attachment, and just out of curiosity, you go and open attachments, and then, all hell breaks loose after that. I think, a lot of that is happening, and it's happening more frequently. So phishing, where emails are sent, that look legitimate, coming from, perhaps your bank or your insurance company or your gym, or even what looks like a close friend of yours, with attachments that have subjects that seem legitimate. One of the things that you must always do is verify. Forget trust anymore. People always say trust and verify, or trust but verify. In that realm, there is no trust. Just verify, okay? Because one of the things have gotten so sophisticated that even security companies fall prey. And I mean, cybersecurity companies fall prey to this stuff. I mean, the last major breach globally, the SolarWinds breach, was discovered by FireEye, a cybersecurity company. They were breached, and they determined that they were breached And think about if a cybersecurity company full of experts gets breached by these actors, what about you? So I think, things like phishing, where you're getting emails and attachments, be careful. And look, no form of, firewall, intrusion prevention or detection system or anything like that prevents someone from clicking on a link or an attachment that they're not supposed to. User awareness and training does that. And that is something that I don't think we do enough of within businesses as practitioners, getting that word out that, look, the biggest threat is not always from outside, it's from inside, right? Because, the majority of breaches and threats originated from an action that occurred inside the business. And one of the things we always want to do is like, yes, we want you to protect the perimeter and your systems, but you need to make your staff conscious and aware of how they need to function, what they must do, what they should not do. And if you're in doubt, verify. Okay. I mean, if you have time a little later, Chris, I'd like to do kind of like this corollary or parallel between how you protect your home and how you protect yourself and your business, and the linkages between the different technologies for securing your home versus what you do, and the comparison between securing your business, because there is a very interesting parallel between the two. And I think, people tend to understand that pretty well when we compare how you protect your home and the things that you do, and link that to how you protect your business using cybersecurity platforms and products to do that. So if we have time to do that, I'd like to do that a little later.
Definitely, Trevor. We're gonna get to that. But as I mentioned the word home, it just pops to mind our promo out there that went out online and also in the various newspapers, Jamaica Observer, Digital Life, Business Observer. We also spoke about solutions for remote office and work from home. And so you mentioned the word home, it pops to my mind. I said, let's talk about this because, as I said, we've been very, very general around IT security. We've been very, very general around the importance of IT security overall. But the pandemic globally has brought a whole new set of challenges to IT security practitioners. So, myself and my organization, we help and manage organizations out there. And what the big challenge was and the worry is that, hold on, all of these people are now working from home. Before, we had maybe one or two people working from home. We were able to use certain type of technologies to protect them. Now we have like the entire staff. So it's small and medium-sized companies, according to our Jamaican definition. It's different from the U.S. definition. U.S. definition of small companies is less than 500 individuals. The Jamaican definition of small business is less than 50 individuals. So protecting 50 people who are working from home. Give us some sense of what type of solutions and technologies that we need to consider out there as we try now protect individuals who are all over the place. We don't know the type of technology that they have at home. We don't know if their kids are using the parents' laptops. We don't know how many devices are connected to their Wi-Fi and all of this kind of stuff. We don't know if the Wi-Fi is protected. When we have all of these unknowns, what should a person do around security as we talk about all of this now?
So one of the things that we saw when the whole work from home picked up steam here was that there was a misconception that because the office was protected and they were providing a secure tunnel, which is called a VPN, a virtual private network, they were providing that secure tunnel to the office, that everything was fine. There wasn't a consideration about the fact that because you were providing a secure tunnel, if the user at home is compromised, you're going to be walking every bad actor that has compromised that user at home into the organization. So we were speaking about, once in the organization as well, then what access would that individual now have if there was no, multi-authentication facility? So we were looking at protecting that device, which is endpoint protection. We looked at when they got to the organization where the user would have access. We looked at if there was a facility for the environment of the home itself. So in other words, what tools beyond endpoint protection was there, and then once they got into the office, what kind of access. So we, Fortinet, I think it coined our phrase zero trust networks, specifically referring to that. I know that was a pet project for Emmanuel, because I know he's going to want to comment on it. But the idea was, you could not have a reliance just on that secure tunnel to the office. You had to have a consideration about the individual, what that individual was doing. And once you got into the organization, how were you going to make a determination if the user is secure to move around, and where in the organization they would be allowed to move around, what access of information they would have. And then the additional consideration is, what information are they taking out as well, right? Because it's not only about the bad actor taking out information, is that if the user is taking out information as well, and they're compromised outside of the organization, what would happen? But Emmanuel, I know you're rearing to go on that one, because I know it was a pet project, so.
Emmanuel, jump in.
Yeah, no, hey, thank you, Ron. So, well put, right? So we saw the ramp up, and what happened, a lot of business were caught standing still. And what Ron mentioned about this zero trust architecture, and to our guests and the panelists as well, is that at Fortinet, we architect security. Everything is about a framework. We have the security fabric. We have our security-driven networking, our adaptive cloud security. So the other a pillar that we worked on is zero trust network access, right? And I heard Gia mention that. It's about, I walk to the bank, I'm only accessing the application that I'm supposed to access. That's in the office, but not out from home. I don't know who's behind that machine. I don't know what's going on, where, and what it's trying to access. So what zero trust network does, it's a framework that Fortinet developed that integrates a collection of our security solutions, right? That enable organizations such as GIAs and SMBs alike, enterprises, right? To identify, classify all users and devices seeking network access. So once you're on the network, that's great. Now what happens? There's the application, right? So we also include the application piece also, because you cannot forget about the application. Then that intruder, as Ron mentioned, everyone, of course, VPN is secure. We understand that because it provides an encrypted path, but it's the same tunnel that the bad guys can use to access the application. So if you can control access, but not access to the application, you're leaving yourself exposed. So what we do is we assess their states, right? For compliance, for internal policies, and we automatically assign them into zones so that we can control it. And the key piece here, not only when they're on the network, but you continuously monitor their activities on the network until such time they disconnect and so on. So again, Trevor also mentioned that you had the concept trust but verify, right? But now it's a zero trust. You trust no one. And also we also have to keep in mind that access, the fact that someone works internally doesn't mean that they may not be a potential threat to our system as well. Right?
Thank you very, very much, Emmanuel. Mitri, with respect to your various roles, I don't know, and you mentioned one board that you sit on. Are we having discussions at board level about IT security? Ask Mitri first, and then Gia after.
Certainly not on the boards that I sit or on government boards. No, it might very well be happening, and it doesn't come to the board. But no, I don't see the urgency there.
All right, Gia?
For our board, we did have an IT committee, but that was more for IT projects. Where we are having these discussions and looking to put this is more on our governance side as to the policies and the policies that exist for IT. So we are having the discussions. what we see though is that from a board level, it's actually where does it fit? Is it a governance issue? Is it, hey, you need an IT committee to have continuous discussions about this? And even then, do you have the expertise to do it? And for us right now, we see it as a governance issue, Chris. So we have it more on the governance level than we do on a IT level.
Okay, great, thank you. So, both Ron and Emmanuel gave us a great kind of show of an ecosystem around how we could use to protect our users as they are working from home remotely, and what considerations they should have. But I've actually posed some of those scenarios with a number of people, and one thing they throw up in the air is, well, you know what, we're using the cloud. And so the cloud provides the necessary protection for me, so I don't have to worry about that, because the person at home, they're just connecting directly to whether it's Google or Office 365, and there is protection there. Trevor, Emmanuel, Ron, someone using the cloud, relying on the cloud technology, relying on a cloud partner, and they believe that, hey, I don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. Shine some light. Educate that person, please. Trevor.
All right, so as a company that provides cloud services, and ourselves, we've been using the cloud since 2007, almost exclusively. One of the things that we find that kind of clouds the understanding of many of the cloud proponents is the fact that the cloud itself is still just a bunch of computers. Now, the thing is, when you're moving information between your device in your office and the cloud, you're moving it from your computer over a network to another computer, a bunch of computers. Now, if that information either on your computer is not secure, or when it's traveling over the various networks, and you're talking about a global network going through many touch points and countries and so on, if that's not secure, and they call that data in motion, and when it's on the cloud servers where they sit, and they call that data at rest. If your data in motion and data at rest is not secure, then it really doesn't matter where you have it. So all the cloud is really doing is, moving the responsibility of securing infrastructure out of your office to a remote office, but you still have to ensure that information that is on your device, which is extremely valuable, the information that you're sending to those servers in the cloud, and the mechanism that you use to send them, all of those links have to be secure. So by simply putting stuff in the cloud doesn't make it secure. It has to be secure, on your device, on its way to the cloud, and when it's sitting on the cloud, it also has to be secure. Typically, cloud computing providers lend themselves to a fair level of security, but that's only one chain in the link. So your machine, the connection to the cloud, all of these things have to be secure.
Ron, Emmanuel, you want to weigh in on any other security challenges that folks who rely on the cloud and say that, hey, those guys have it down pat, I pay my subscription. What are some of the risks they're opening themselves up to?
Well, contrary to popular beliefs, the same risk that you would see, right, at the at your data center level, and now you're putting into the cloud, basically into someone else's data center, right? It's some of the same risks. They are vulnerable, just like any other entity. The fact that they're cloud or they belong to some well-known names and platforms, that doesn't mean that they provide to security, and which is contrary to popular belief. So here's the thing, though, with the cloud, there's an old saying, right? I think it was P.T. Barnum, the US guy, that says, you build it and they shall come, right? And that's no different for public cloud. And there are many advantages they bring to an organization, with significant benefits, right? And we cannot deny that. Return of investment, lower cost of ownership. But in spite of those benefits, security is a major concern, and it is subjective, right? When it comes to public cloud, and in effect, our users or the audience and our panel who are here, that you are responsible for your own security. That's it, point blank. It's not being done by AWS. It's not being done. They do the minimum that's necessary to allow your traffic to go in for you to build your cloud environment. But apart from that, that is it. So again, you're moving to the cloud. You are responsible for your own security. And what that does also, which is very important, and I like to share this, when you make a move, you have to address risk, right? And we have to manage security from a risk management perspective, right? If I'm adding an application on my network, I have to see what are the risks that it poses. Well, it could be a positive risk, it could be negative risk, or whatever, something that brings in revenue, right? But at least address it. And the same needs to be done with cybersecurity. So what you do is when you move from your data center or your local computing environment into the cloud, you're actually broadening your threat landscape. You're increasing your exposure because there are folks out there who are attacking, and there are different things that are happening within the cloud that you need to be aware of. And any organization that is taking the step to the cloud should be concerned about securing the data entering and leaving the cloud, as Trevor mentioned. So you would provide some sort of encryption method so you can secure it, right? And securing data in the cloud, whether you have some sort of encryption method or something to that effect, and also having visibility into what your users are doing into the cloud. Are you sure it's your users that are accessing your environment? Also, as I mentioned earlier, the vulnerabilities do exist. You can Google it, cloud vulnerabilities. And you'll find the different types, right? And these are some of the challenge. And also you have the fact that it's a shared environment. It's like an apartment, right? If my neighbor makes a noise, I'm gonna hear it, right? So we need to make sure that we architect the security into the cloud in cloud environment. And also what COVID has done, and I like to bring that, is you see, to expand and also bring resiliency to the infrastructure. You see customers now are leveraging multiple cloud environments. And again, this brings additional challenge. Each one of those cloud environments represent and actually threat landscape. So really expand it, and you need to focus and address the risk for each one of the cloud environment. So at the same time, the key to managing a very good cloud hygiene, right, is to a successful security architect in the cloud environment, is to understand where the provider's responsibility ends and where yours, the actual customer ends, right? And the answer isn't always clear cut in terms when it comes to security. And as Gia mentioned earlier, security is very dynamic in nature. It changes, and the threats only increases. And the definition of shared responsibility security model can vary between different service providers, different from AWS, Azure, or Google, or any other cloud. So with that said, also, when you look at us from a Fortinet perspective, and we understand that our customers who are moving to the cloud need to secure that, again, we provide a framework and architecture, which is our adaptive cloud security, right? That will address some of those challenges that I mentioned, data leaving in and out, who's doing what where, providing what we call segmentation of the different services that you have on the cloud platform. That's my take on cloud platforms.
Thank you very, very, very much, Emmanuel, for that very detailed and robust. I mean, I'm taking notes myself because One, I'm learning more about Fortinet, apart from just, a Fortinet firewall that I'm used to. So I'm learning a lot more. As a matter of fact, I definitely will be having a discussion with Ron after this. Ron, anything to add to that, or we've covered the cloud?
Actually, I think Emmanuel covered every point I was going to raise.
Fantastic, fantastic. Trevor, you and I have been talking about IT security for the better part of the last 3 or 4 years. We've also been talking about awareness training, educating. We've also been talking about trying to help folks understand this thing a little bit better. So much so that you and I have just recently started writing a series of articles in the Jamaica Observer around security. So today, in today's Business Observer, in the digital life section, we had the 6th in our series about the cybersecurity roadmap. So for those folks who are on the ground here in Jamaica, please grab your Jamaica Observer today and take a look at what we have there. So against that backdrop, Trevor, you mentioned the scenario. Well, 2 scenarios. I want to put you on the spot because recently you shared with me a scenario around when you were discussing with a customer in Mitri's manufacturing world, where you asked a very important question and you got an answer that surprised you, but when you translated the answer, it surprised the folks that you're talking to. So paint the picture for us, set the context, and enlighten our darkness around what are the critical assets that people believe that they have, and what really and truly should they be actually looking on.
Right. So no, I was working with a client. We're doing an assessment for them, and we tend to try to get a good understanding of the business before we do full assessments and make recommendations on where they should go. So one of my questions to the client was, what do you? Because I'm trying to get them to understand that the technology and their data is extremely important, and that is what is worth protecting, and that's what you have to make the investment in. But my lead-in was, what do you view as your most important asset for your business? Okay. And sometimes people think that's a trick question because someone said, well, it's my people, or something like that. In the case of this particular entity, the answer to that question was my graphics. I said, okay, but that's your data. They know it's my graphics. So I said, well, okay, how do you and where do you store these graphics? Oh, they're on a computer, a set of computers downstairs, or on a hard drive. I said, they're on a hard drive electronically. They're data. So, in other words, your most important and valuable asset is the data. And it took a little while for that to connect, but when it did, they were like, okay, I get you. And a lot of times, sometimes people don't make that link. They say, well, it's graphics or it's custom information or something. But anything that's stored in digital form, whether it be customer data, your accounting information, all that stuff. If that stuff is stored digitally, it's a target and must be protected. Because if it's gone, just like I mentioned earlier, if you take away all the technology, take away all the computers and everything, if your business can't function without these things, that stuff is what is worth being protected. So in that situation, I was able to get the customer to understand that it is your data that is your most valuable asset, even though you might not call it that, but that is what it is. And if that is your most valuable asset, what would happen if that hard drive failed, or if somebody walked out of the business with it, or the computer failed, or some hacker hacked into your network, encrypted it using ransomware, and then started to demand money from you? How much would you pay for that? All right, because what now happens when you can't access all of these assets, that if essentially causes your business to stop working. So different businesses, and again, we as practitioners have to try to understand business so that we can explain it in the right terms to the people who are speaking to, so that they can understand the true value of what it is we're asking them to protect. Because a lot of times they may not even realize that what needs to be protected is actually that stuff on some server or some computer, or stuff that people have access to, that they could easily push a jump drive into the computer, copy it all off, leave, go to another business, all your company secrets and intellectual property has now walked out of your building and is now in the custody of your competition. So all of these kinds of things are sometimes taken for granted. Not some of my customers don't even realize that these are the valuable things that must be protected. And in helping them to realize that, then they start to see the value. Because once you ask them to put and they can do this, put a dollar figure on this asset and tell me what it would cost you if you lost it, because they can do that real well. And then compare that to what it's going to cost you to protect it. Sometimes you get value of asset cost to protect it, all right? And that's how it starts to make business sense. So we try to it's very important to form those relationships, to understand the business, and then to understand what makes business sense for a decision maker, because we sometimes just don't do a very good job of that. And that is why sometimes businesses don't take the actions they need to take. They don't really understand why and the value until they lose it.
Right.
So I think that's very important.
Right. Trevor, thank you very much for that. So at the top of this webinar, one of the things we had said is that both Gia and Mitri represent that wide cross-section of our industry here in the Caribbean, and more particularly in Jamaica, that don't believe that they should be they have an antivirus software, they have enough, they have a firewall, their IT guy told them that they're good. So my question, Gia and Mitri, have you heard anything here over the last almost 90 minutes that has made you even think one thing differently, or may change something in the future over the next year? Gia.
Thank you, Chris. If I could, couple things that popped out to me. First of all, Emmanuel, thank you for sort of explaining the cloud. One of the things that I have been asking, everybody keeps telling me, put it in the cloud. And I say, okay, could somebody tell me, where is the cloud? What is the cloud? What do I do with the cloud? And I can't get an answer. Like I'm being honest with you, no IT person that I've spoken to can give me a clear answer as to what is the cloud.
Really?
So I thank you, Emmanuel, for that response. That's number one. Number two, Trevor, I think the way that you did that whole description of graphics to data was a very good way to do it for a business person. If you speak, I have an 18-year-old. If you speak to my 18-year-old, data to her equals her phone. It does not equal anything else. And the majority of my staff, when you say data, they only think of their phone. They do not think of the computer and what takes place with the computer and whatever is being measured. So one of the things that, I'm very curious about your zero net fortification. That sort of resonated with me. As I would want to hear it in a different forum, because it made sense to me somewhat, but I would need a broader explanation.
Sure.
And from a company perspective, is there certain data that we really should not be putting in the cloud? That, hey, is it more secure to keep it in, if you want to put it this way, in a vault inside of a room that's fortified. That's number two. And when it comes down to, hey, how much money do I spend on IT? I don't know. So IT to me is almost like the new marketing. I don't know if anybody here, normally people think, what, you want to give marketing that much money? No, 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 you don't need that much money in marketing. Take it out of marketing and put it into hiring a human, or put it into doing, an upgrade on so and so. We in small businesses, that's what we face with IT. Because again, IT to us does not necessarily mean what it means to you guys. It means, what do I spend on my computers? What do I spend on my laptops? What do I spend on, some program that my persons need to do, a simulation. So that is where we do need guidance, but we don't necessarily need it from, how much can I sell you? We need it from the guidance of, this is what your company does. This is what you should look to budget for IT, for security, for laptops, for everything. So you really get a picture painted. And Chris and Trevor, since you're doing these cybersecurity articles, I will tell you that, Trevor, that example you used of data, I would recommend highly that you put it in one of your articles, because I can guarantee you that if you speak to 20 people, they have a different definition. Each person will have a different definition of data, depending on what they use on a day-to-day basis, right? So nobody thinks that their phone is going to be hacked, but a phone is basically a mini computer right now. But we don't think of it as a mini computer. So Chris, I'm sorry that you think that way, but I still have never been convinced as to what the cloud is. It's not tactile. I can't touch it.
Yeah.
All right, Gio, please set a calendar meeting for you and I to sit down for 90 minutes to go through these matters. Mitri, have you heard anything today that add any new thought or add some texture and color around the topic that we're on?
Absolutely. I think I have a much deeper understanding of what cybersecurity is about and how granular it can be within your organization. So yes, I have made notes, and I think what really resonated with me was the last thing that Trevor said, which is they come into businesses and look at what the data that you have out there is, and the vulnerable data, and then tell you how to protect that. And I think that's what we need. That's what companies of our size need. That's what smaller companies need. We don't have the personnel in place to understand what's happening and what we need to protect. We need you to come and tell us. So with that said, yes, this has been very useful for me, and I hope to those listening, they'll call in companies like yourselves to come in and help to protect us.
Thank you, Mitri. Trevor, everyone seemed to have liked the example of translating from that specific industry what data was, because in their mind, it's either graphics or the plans or whatever the words that they typically use to describe it. So what it might have been a draftsman having a plan on paper, and they now move it into a digital world. So you move from regular design to AutoCAD. In their mind, it's still the design. And so, but for us as practitioners, we understand. But you also have another example, Trevor, that you and I have been discussing and trying to hone and fine-tune to use in this. Give us the scenario of our own using protecting a house, because I have used it successfully, going into folks and saying, look how many hoops I had to jump through to come to see your office. I was at the security front desk, somebody had to call. So give the scenario around a home scenario, Trevor.
Right. So, and I find that this kind of, again, is an attempt to simplify the tech speak to, what everybody understands regularly. So there was once a time in Jamaica where very few houses had fences, right? So And then, crime kind of went up. So crime now is kind of like cyber attacks, right? So the first thing people did was, they started to build fences, and the fences were not, little wooden fences, that you could walk through, stone wall. So you build a fence around your home, and that kind of equates to like a firewall, right? Because that's the first thing the would-be criminal will run into when they're trying to get into your house. And then, and of course, with the fence, you have your gate, and, it got to the point where, your gate, you used to get out of your car and open the gate and go in, and so now you have electronic gates. So your gate got smart. So firewalls got smart because, you didn't want to expose yourself to the would-be criminals. But then the next thing you look at is, again, back in the 70s, late 70s, 80s, you decided to put grills on their windows, right? Because, yeah, the windows and doors are there, but again, if a man jump your fence, then the only thing to stop him from getting into your house is the window, which it can break and so on. So now people started putting grills on their windows and so on. Now you can look at grills and stuff like antivirus, right? So that's a next layer of protection to stop somebody from getting into your house. So antivirus sits on your computers and prevents people from getting in. Then now, after that, you start to see that, hold on a second, them not try to jump through the window. Some of them breaks down and just come through the front door. So you start to put locks on your front door. Some of you used to put the big bolts and, bigger locks than just the simple keys and so on. So you boosted up the locks that were on your door. So what the keys and the locks and all of those things amounted to were like your password, because you need to have the right key to get into the house. So passwords suddenly became important. And then some, at a later time, you start to have very sophisticated locks with, passcodes. So not only do you have a key, but then you have a passcode. Now the passcode you can equate to what you call multi-factor authentication. So yes, you have the key. So the key is one part of the lock that you can open, but then you have to put in a code to fully open the door. So that's kind of where you have multi-factor, multi-level authentication. So that's kind of how you could equate those two: lock, passcode, entry. Then, so then after that, people are saying, well, gee, I want to see what's happening inside and outside. So they started to install cameras, right? So now you had cameras not only outside your house, but inside your house. And the cameras kind of acted now like intrusion detection, because sometimes you sit down in your house and you don't know what's going on outside. Thief or pry open your door, or quietly pry your window. The cameras now would tell you what's happening outside, right? So now you have what they call intrusion detection. That's what the cameras do. Now the cameras outside would tell you when people are trying to come in. The cameras inside would tell you what the people inside are doing to go out. And remember, one of the biggest threats in business is not only the external one, but the internal one. So cameras acted like your intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, so to speak, but also they have a thing called data loss prevention. And that is what things like cameras allow you to do. So that's where that parallel exists. Then after cameras, then you had, people started to look at, general alarm systems and so on, very sophisticated ones. And what the alarm system does is it alerts you. If the guy successfully, get past the lock, cut through the grill and come into your house, and depending on the elaborate nature of your alarm system, then a signal would go off, right? Red flags and warnings and everything start to go off. And what that amounts to in technical speak is kind of like your event security information event management. They call it SEAM. But this is what alerts you that something is happening. There has been a breach after all this security that we've put in. Somebody still got in, because you can't stop a motivated thief, right? So when they get in, or when you see the attempts to get in. That is what the alarm system would do, and in security land, that's kind of equates to what they call SEAM. And then finally, people not only used to put in the alarm system, but as we got more sophisticated, alarm companies started to install the alarm systems and do the monitoring for you, so that even if you weren't at home or something happened while you're at home, they would know and they could respond. So the alarms were now tied to the alarm system companies who would do monitoring for you, and they kind of act as your external security monitoring and consultant, or what you call a security operations center. And they now would deploy a team to make sure that your property was secure. And again, when you look at all of these different layers, this is what we're trying to accomplish with all these different technologies. They have very fancy names, but if you think about why you put all these things at your home, and cameras, locks, passcode, electric gate, fence, alarm system tied to King Alarm, Hawkeye, or whoever, you're protecting your most valuable asset at home. That's you and your family. It is very similar to what you're trying to protect at work in the form of your data that keeps your business going. And that's kind of how we try to create that sort of parallel between the sophisticated tech speak and all those fancy things that Fortinet alludes to and sells to people, and the practical meaning of that in the office or even at home. So I hope that kind of explains how that stuff works.
Yes, Emmanuel. Okay, so 1 second. So folks, we have 8 minutes before the end of our allotted time. So I'm going to ask Emmanuel. So I'll take that as Trevor's last word. I'm going to ask for Ron's and Emmanuel's last word, and then close off with Mitri and Gia's last word, and then we say thanks to all folks who have joined us from Twitter land, Facebook Live, Instagram. I was kind of checking all the various social media channels, and also a number of comments that have come in, and a number of comments that has come in on the actual platform, and also on various Instagram. I'm actually reading a comment here that was written by Marcia Forbes. Marcia, thanks for building this facility here. We're actually sitting here at Phase 3 Studio to bring this to you today. And her comment was around, like those huge gates people have locked behind and no one can see from outside. Meanwhile, the burglars are inside. So that was a comment connected to, who is the weakest link? Sometimes the users in the organization is the weakest link. And of course, there are a few other comments. I saw Greg Stewart. I think that is the same Greg Stewart who was, I think, is head of Microsoft here in Jamaica at one point in time, and was actually the first employee of Microsoft in the Caribbean. One of the things he made a comment around was, hey, maybe one of the ways to simplify the explanation is to explain how the computer came about from day one until now. But useful as a panel to explain how computers have evolved. Trevor, maybe in another article we can write something around that to tie it all to the digital. And yes, so receive a lot of great comments. Thank you, guys. Emmanuel, just tie up what you're about to say a while ago, and then Ron, and then Gia and Mitri, and then we go. Thank you. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
So this is a wrap up, right? Yeah. So just wanted to where Trevor kind of finished off, because he perfectly described the what we call the security fabric. So again, I know we talk a different language, right? And we may say security fabric, and we say, what is this Fortinet security fabric? Well, Fortinet security fabric is exactly what Trevor described. So it's providing security at every layer, but most importantly than provide security is actually responding and being able to take some course of action against a threat that's inside your house or that's running within your network, right? So thank you for that, Trevor. So for as we wrap up, right, and on behalf of the Fortinet team, thank you, Christopher, T-Tech team, Trevor, 876 and Solutions, and our esteemed panelists for having me and my distinguished colleague, Ronald here, and it's a pleasure for us. Most of all, special thanks to the audience for taking the time to be here with us today to discuss a very, very, very important topic, which is cyber security, right? So thinking about the new norm, it's not surprising that the threats to our infrastructure and the digital transformation have seen a barrage of attack in the past several months, right? Not just talking about last year, I'm talking about this year, with the use of very sophisticated ransomware as a service, right? And also attacks that did not just simply compromise a computer on the network, all right, but potentially impact our everyday lives, as we saw with the water system adding extra chemicals, percentage of chemicals, and looking at the Colonial Pipeline, cutting off the fuel and attacking the meat packaging plant. So really it's gone to another level. I never thought of that would happen, last year, right? So the attacks have targeted critical infrastructure, our supply chain, and this is a reality, right? And one more than ever, organizations need to take a proactive measure, big or small, right, to protect their IT investment and address the risk in doing business in cyberspace. Businesses do risk analysis to see whether they're going to push a different product. We look at risk for doing business globally, all those that. So we need to address security in the same fashion from a risk management approach. The threat landscape, my friends, is always going to continue. Now it will only continue to expand. And let's not wait until an incident has occurred or you become a stat, right, to seek help in securing your infrastructure and digital transformation. The good news here, on my part and from Fortinet side, is there is help, right? And it makes good common sense and proper cyber hygiene to leverage, the partnership like T-Tech 876 and Fortinet with a vast experiences in cybersecurity, helping organizations, small and large, all alike, yourself to manage the cyber threat. With over 20 years of experience and having folks on the ground in Jamaica to help move that forward, right? And at the end, lastly, my friend, I will say security in a silo is not security. And knowing is half the battle. Thank you.
Emmanuel, fantastic. Ron, as you do your wrap-up, if there's any special offers or there's anything that Fortinet will want to throw our way in Jamaica, do let us know. The organization has been around for over 20 years, one of the top 3 largest IT security organizations globally. So Ron, your final word.
Well, to build on Trevor's point, which was excellent, by the way, a completely excellent description of the security fabric. What Fortinet has a distinction of doing as well is that security fabric provides a foundation for future proofing. So in other words, we know that the hackers are going to continue to learn and evolve, and the threat landscape is not a static thing, as Emmanuel said, but it allows future proofing. The other distinction as well is that when we talk about cybersecurity and all the different tools, we find that the customers get overwhelmed. Oh, we're going to have to buy this and that, and it's just so much stuff. Fortinet is known for allowing for what we call a single pane of glass. It provides like a single console so you can operate and have all these different tools being managed without having your personal being overwhelmed. Because it has artificial intelligence in there, it takes away the onerous manual intervention by IT personnel. So that will assist managed services like T-Tech and 876, but it also assists on the customer side as well, because you don't have a multiplicity of different tools to work with. With regards to the good parts, Chris, yes, I would suggest that everybody who's watching this webinar right now, if you're reaching out to 876 or T-Tech, just mention JOL at Jamaica Observer Online at Fortinet, and guarantee there's going to be an extra 15% discount in there for everybody.
Thank you very, very much for that offer. Fantastic. So as we wrap, just asking Gia and Mitri to give last word, but before I ask them to jump in, just kind of reminding folks that one thing we have heard here over and over repeated is that our threat landscape has, I don't know, it has heightened tremendously. The pandemic has brought on its own set of issues with work from home, but the fact of the matter is that for all you folks out there who say, well, I already have this firewall, I already have this antivirus, or this, this company is already doing this thing for me, we need to wheel and come again, as we say in Jamaica. You need to take a look at all of that and realize that if the threats have gotten more sophisticated and complex, then you need to speak to your provider around coming to increase and improve. Trevor gave a fantastic overview with respect to that house and how we have moved up the security level of our own house to protect our own lives. Mitri, Gia, ladies before gentlemen, final word.
Okay, thank you again, Chris. And first of all, thank you to the panel. I found this very eye-opening, and it did answer some of my questions that I've been having. Trevor, I think you need to change careers and become a person who explains complex things in the manner in which you tend to explain it, because you're very good at it. I think you can sell ice to an Eskimo because you broke it down where I can understand it. So I thank you really a lot for that. One thing I would say is, what I heard here was very much equated to when you're doing renovations on a home. When you do renovations on a home, there's tangible things and intangible things. The intangible things are behind the wall. You can't see it, and you really don't understand why you need to spend money on the things that you cannot see behind the wall. And unfortunately, IT is that. It's very intangible until, yes, a cyber attack takes place, and then the tangibility of it all of a sudden becomes apparent to us as individuals. And so that would be what I would leave here with, that there is certain things, and I like that pain thing that you just spoke about, Ron, because that is one of my things. Whilst you look at a house, normally what we would do is hire a contractor who's going to manage the whole, or a project manager who's going to manage the whole entire project and make sure that your life is as painless as possible. And so that is what we're looking for, a pain-free way of having IT being provided to us, where I don't need to go back to university to learn to become an IT expert. That's really, so I thank all of the panel. I thought you guys were fantastic and gave me some really good insight into the IT world and into cybersecurity. So, and thank you, Chris, for involving me in this webinar. I've had quite a lot of fun with it. Thank you.
Mitri?
Yeah, I really appreciate the offer, Chris and Trevor, and it's been a great experience. And I also appreciate Ron's offer of 15% to everyone who just mentioned that they were here, and 25% for the people who were on the panel. Great job. But no, in reality, thanks, guys. It's been helpful and certainly given a new perspective. So it was great being here. Thank you.
Excellent. So ladies and gentlemen online, worldwide, local and national, thank you very, very much for joining another Jamaica Observer, the Digital Life webinar. Today's topic was cybersecurity for small, medium-sized businesses, small, medium-sized enterprises. Thank you very much. Keep following all the various social media channels from the Jamaica Observer to see what the next topic is going to be when we take on another interesting scenario around making the digital life smoother and easier to handle. Thank you very much and have a fantastic rest of the day.